This is not defamation. This is documentation. Today, we're looking at a pattern involving Marsha Mixon, Lyndee Kinard, and Kelsey Rhae Carraway. Yes, Carraway. Now, we'll get to that later. And all the receipts, well, they're going to speak for themselves. Everything you're about to see comes from public posts, public business pages, public timelines, and statements they made themselves. There's no guesses, no assumptions, just pure documentation. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to show you what exists publicly and let you decide what you want to do with it. Let's get started because we have so much to talk about. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin Bies. I'm a wife, a mom, a military veteran, and I spent 13 and a half years in multi-level marketing. Prove It was the last company that I was a part of, and I think that's important to mention here because I've seen every tactic, every manipulation style, every strategic silence, every delete and block, every God told me to do this, every financial truth dressed up as faith. I've seen it all. When you've lived through that much smoke, it becomes really easy to spot where the fire actually is. And once you take a step back and see the big picture, it's quite eye-opening. This video is not about judging somebody's faith. It's not about personality. And it's definitely not about whether somebody bakes good bread. This is about patterns, public behavior, and of course, documentation. What you're about to see is a full timeline built from things they posted, deleted, shared, promoted, or sold themselves. And to be clear, the story didn't just fall into my lap. People in their local community have been questioning their timeline and their activities for months, whispering, trying to make it make sense in some way, shape, or form. When you put all the pieces together, the picture that forms is fascinating. Stay with me until the end because there's a piece of the story involving Prove It, downline income, and a very unexpected discovery from the research process on this video that ties everything together in a way I did not see coming. Grab a drink, and I hope it's your favorite flavor of Dr. Pepper Zero. You know I have my strawberries and cream ready, and she is extra crispy today. All right, so get comfortable, and let's break this down step by step. We're gonna start from the beginning. When I say beginning, I mean let's start with Marsha Mixon, because she's the connector between Lyndee and Kelsey Rhae. In fact, that is their aunt. She is the original recruiter in the Prove It downline. She's the bridge between the faith-based branding, the influencer marketing, the cookbook messaging, bakery monetization, and the online personas her family members now operate within, I should say, in my opinion. Before we even get into the recent GoFundMe for Marsha's dad, Lyndee and Kelsey Rhae's grandfather, the medical storyline, which is a whole situation on its own, we need to look at the pattern that came first. Marsha publicly presents herself as a woman of deep faith, redemption, and resilience. The God restored me storyline, the blessings are flowing storyline, the haters can't stop what God is doing storyline. And look, nothing is wrong with a redemption arc, nothing is wrong with faith, nothing is wrong with personal transformation. But when you step back and you look at the timeline, the fundraisers, the bakery launch, the equipment purchases, the marketplace flips, the illness monetization, the multi-level marketing history, the coaching pivot, the defensiveness, and the deleted posts and live videos, a very specific pattern starts to emerge. Years ago, Marsha publicly shared her felony conviction story, including appearing on a podcast where she described how a 17th birthday party led to a 3-year prison sentence. She framed her comeback as a miracle, a testimony, a story meant to help other women, and then she monetized that story through her book, Prison to Prosperity with Purpose, through speaking style captions on social media posts. And this isn't criticism. It's context that I think is really important to this deep dive, because this is the earliest documented example of a pattern we're going to see on repeat throughout this entire video. Before the bakery, before the donuts and the small town competition she allegedly has and was creating, before any of the GoFundMes, Marsha created a Facebook group centered around her father's open heart surgery. This group wasn't just for updates. It was also used for fundraising. It was also used for grifting, in my opinion. This personal family crisis became the first documented moment that I was able to find where her audience was mobilized for financial support. That matters because the same structure appears again years later. Next comes Marsha's involvement in multi-level marketing. She joins Prove It, I believe, sometime in 2018. She later recruits Lyndee, and Lyndee later recruits Kelsey Rhae. This is the beginning of what I refer to as the Mixon family influencer ecosystem. And yes, I'm using air quotes. And in 2024, according to an anonymous source, Prove It Compliance was contacted regarding concerns involving Marsha collecting a check off her nieces and their teams without supporting them. And let me just back up for just a second. What does that mean? When you're in a multi-level marketing company, and I'll speak specifically on Prove It, and you have a team, it is actually written, or was at the time I was in Prove It, that if you have a team and you are earning a check off of that team, that you are to support them. So it is a big no-no with Prove It, and again, at least it was back when I was a part of it, to not support your team. And I'm pretty sure at that time, and keep in mind I got out in 2021, it was written in the policies and procedures that you had to support your team, and that if you didn't, it wasn't acceptable. That matters because MLM compensation plans are hierarchical by design. Who sits above whom determines who benefits financially, and it's typically, as we all know, the people at the top that benefit the most. In this case, Marsha is the one at the top when it comes to her and Lyndee and Kelsey Rhae. So the defensiveness, the deleting, the overwhelm and drama didn't start with the bakery. It started much, much earlier. Now we enter the bakery era. On November 8th of this year, Marsha posted a polished video on her YouTube channel explaining her donut process and that she was making them for fun. What's been alleged to me is that this was one of the bakery items that Marsha was quote unquote policing other bakers to directly compete with them. This isn't casual hobby type content, even though it seems like that's what Marsha wants you to think. I feel like this is intentional on Marsha's part. Don't get me wrong, competition can be a great thing, but there's a way to go about it, and from the sounds of it, this doesn't sound like healthy competition. This sounds like allegedly she can get pretty nasty. In the summer of 2025, we start seeing bakery equipment purchases on her Stirred by God bakery page. Refrigerators, sinks, prep tables, shelving. Some items are later flipped for profit, according to her Facebook page, which means income existed in some kind of capacity. Assets were being accumulated, business investments were being made. So the narrative that she had nothing and needed help to start doesn't really line up here for me. On July 1st, 2025, Marsha launches a GoFundMe. It's framed as a community effort to help restore a dream that she has had. It raises $305 and then quietly disappears. It doesn't seem there's any follow-up or any transparency, no explanation of how the funds were used. Nothing. Shortly after, Marsha announces the purchase of a nearly $9,000 commercial bread oven. Bakery equipment is extremely expensive. There's nothing wrong with upgrading your business. There's nothing wrong with using credit in order to build your business. There's nothing wrong with having investors. But the timeline matters, and the context in all of this, I think, is what is the most important. Community fundraising is followed by high-end equipment purchases with no explanation of funding sources. And again, it's framed as this miracle from God, not a financial decision for a business. And that's not me jabbing her for believing a financial decision was God helping her. All beliefs or lack thereof will always be welcome on my channel, and that will never change. However, when spiritual manipulation is being used to prevent people from asking questions, I think that's a problem. As Marsha's bakery grows, local bakers raise concerns about compliance with state cottage food laws. Instead of addressing those concerns directly, Marsha goes live to address the quote-unquote haters, spiritualizes the criticism, and then later deletes the evidence. This is textbook MLM behavior. I recognize it quickly because I lived it. This isn't a business strategy. In my opinion, it's an attempt to control the narrative. Marsha wins Best Bakery, I believe, in 2024 through a county contest. And this year she won Best Cottage Bakery, which is really cool and should be very exciting. But the county recently changed the contest rules prior to this year's contest, I should say, to differentiate between bakeries and cottage bakeries. And it appeared that Marsha was not a fan. She publicly expressed anger over the category change and then deleted the post once, I guess, she chilled out. This isn't random, it's consistent. It's a pattern with her, in my opinion, when it comes to stuff like this. In December 2025, this same kind of grifting pattern is repeated. Her father is unfortunately diagnosed with lymphoma, which is cancer, contrary to what Lyndee has stated. We'll get to that in the Lyndee chapter. A GoFundMe appears, an Amazon wish list appears, and of course, emotional appeals follow. At the same time, posts continue showing expensive tech, bakery upgrades, and more renovations. This isn't about shame, it's about transparency. It's about putting all the pieces together, because something smells a little fishy to me. Speaking of transparency, why are Marsha, Lyndee, and Kelsey Rhae the only ones that appear to be sharing these things in the family? By things, I mean the GoFundMe and the Amazon wish list. That seems interesting to me. What do you guys think about that? It's one thing to need financial help, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is another thing to publicly portray abundance while privately fundraising. The spending doesn't match the need doesn't match the narrative, and the narrative doesn't match the timeline. And there it is, our pattern. Now let's revisit that Facebook group real quick that Marsha created for quote-unquote updates when her dad was having open heart surgery. If you look at the About section of that group that still does exist today, you'll notice that there is a mention of one-on-one coaching available. There's mention of pricing, but you can't find any pricing anywhere in that group that I was able to find. Which brings me to my next question. Coaching for what exactly? How to recover from open heart surgery? How to grift, allegedly? How to crowdfund? I don't understand. What is she coaching here? Because nothing in her public credentials support her being able to coach people on literally anything. This is an expertise, what I'm seeing in her group, what I saw in her group. It's a monetized persona. It is a pattern that repeats over and over again. So after walking through the fundraisers, the equipment, the branding, the contradictions, the illness monetization, the coaching, the public meltdowns, there's one question that I have left. Where was the money coming from? And stay with me, because when we reach the end of Lyndee's chapter, it all clicks. It will all make sense. So hang tight. Now that we've walked through Marsha's timeline, we need to talk about Lyndee. She is Marsha's direct downline in Prove It, and also her niece, as I stated earlier. She operates inside the same family ecosystem and the same multi-level marketing company, Prove It. And she adopts many of the same public strategies, monetization habits, and narrative framing we just saw from Marsha. This chapter is not about personal feelings. It's not about hot takes, although I'm sure you can guess I have a lot of them. And it's not about whether someone is likable or not. This chapter, and this video in particular, is all about documentation, timing, and money, because following that money trail is what led me to some very interesting information that we're going to talk about shortly. Everything you're about to see comes from public posts, public records, public live video via social media, and public financial filings. Let's walk through it carefully. Lyndee presents herself online as a faith-forward mom, a family-centered content creator, a woman walking through hardship with grace, and someone who regularly will ask her audience for prayers, engagement, and support. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of that. The issue isn't faith. The issue definitely isn't family. The issue is how personal crisis and financial need intersect with monetized platforms and the persona of financial success online. Before we talk about illness, liens, or fundraisers, we need to talk about Meta, because Lyndee was very clear that she was participating in a Meta monetization bonus program. Between November 25th and December 8th, Lyndee was enrolled in a Meta bonus as a creator on their platform. The goal was pretty straightforward: reach $875 in earnings to unlock an additional $259 bonus. During that window, Lyndee publicly asked for help reaching that goal. She asked people to like and comment, share, engage, and that's because engagement directly affects monetized reach. That's not speculation, that's how Meta bonuses work. This is where the numbers matter, and I want to explain it in regular everyday language because algorithms and how they work, along with social media monetization, is really confusing, and if I was confused, I'm sure other people are as well. So let's talk about it. During the bonus window, Lyndee's regular posts averaged low hundreds of views, dozens of reactions, and minimal comments. But when she posted about her grandfather's health crisis, those posts received 9 to 12 times more engagement. You heard that right. That is not a small bump. I don't feel like that is a coincidence considering what she does and has done after all of this. That's the difference between a post quietly existing and a post aggressively being pushed by the algorithm. Because crisis content, unfortunately, drives engagement in a very big way. That's not judgment, although in my opinion, I feel like it's warranted to be judged. That's an observation about how the system rewards certain content. On December 3rd, Lyndee shared posts about her grandfather's health, prayer requests, emotional language, urgent faith-driven updates. Those posts landed squarely inside the Meta bonus window, and they performed dramatically better than her normal content because of all the reasons that I've already mentioned in this video. This matters because engagement equals reach. Reach equals earnings, and earnings, you guessed it, unlock those bonuses. And then we have the misinformation from Lyndee. I want to preface this with maybe this was happening in a highly emotional moment. Maybe this was happening because of the gravity of the situation and she was reaching for some kind of hope. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt here because I feel like that's appropriate. We don't really know what was going on when she posted this. On December 9th, Lyndee posted a video of her grandfather stating, and I quote, "It's not cancer, it's lymphoma." And that statement is factually incorrect. Lymphoma is cancer. That's not opinion, that's a medical fact. Words matter when discussing illness, especially when illness is being shared publicly and tied to monetized engagement. When you have a large following, you have a responsibility to not spread misinformation. So here's a question that I think is fair to ask. How much of the money earned during that Meta bonus window, money generated by posts about your grandfather, was used to support him, Lyndee? How much of that was used to buy the bone broth and the $100 sheets, a walker that he allegedly already owned, and oh yeah, sunshine outside to ground himself, according to the GoFundMe? Because this wasn't just a request for thoughts and prayers, it was monetized engagement that Lyndee personally benefited from through sharing her grandfather's story. And transparency matters when money and crisis intersect, especially when transparency is lacking, to say the least. This question becomes even more relevant when we remember what we covered in the Marsha chapter. There were already public questions being asked about where the GoFundMe money was going, how funds were being used, and why clarity was missing in all of this. I think these are all valid questions to ask when you are asking for people to help support a family member through their battle with cancer financially. Now let's talk about public records, because this is where speculation ends and facts show up loud and clear, and dare I say, in all caps. Lyndee has multiple documented tax liens filed by the state of South Carolina totaling $18,793.94. There are older liens connected to her former photography business. There are released liens from prior years, and that $18,000 is current and active as of today. The most recent filings show balances in the thousands and thousands of dollars, and it includes taxes, penalties, interest, and fees. These are not rumors. This is not speculation. These are official from the Department of Revenue records that anyone can pull up online. In addition to state tax liens, Lyndee also has a homeowners association lien filed by the Oaks at Cane Bay Homeowners Association for unpaid HOA fees, late fees, interest, and legal cost. This lien is dated August 2025, and again, all of this is public record. This part is important, so I want to be very, very precise in what I am saying here. According to publicly available records from search.berkeleydeeds.com, Lyndee re-upped her mortgage in August of 2025. Since that time, there has been no subsequent recorded mortgage payments, there are no recorded satisfactions, and an HOA lien was filed shortly afterwards. Based on typical foreclosure timelines in South Carolina, this places the property, in my opinion, at the risk of foreclosure proceedings. This doesn't mean that foreclosure has occurred, just to be clear. It means that the risk does absolutely exist. And that matters when paired with public fundraising and monetized crisis content. You can see where I'm going with all of this, right? On December 9th, Lyndee addressed some of these concerns on a Facebook Live video. She referenced online criticism, people questioning motives, feeling attacked, etc., etc. What was missing from that, though, was clarity. There was no breakdown of, again, where the money was going, what funds were used for in the GoFundMe or from the GoFundMe, what income streams existed, or how overlapping monetization was going to be handled by her. Defensiveness replaced transparency, and we've seen that pattern before. Haven't we, Marsha? This is where I want to slow things down just a little bit more, because this isn't about just one post. It's not about one bonus or even one tax lien. It's about a pattern that seems to allegedly run in this family. A pattern of personal crisis, public emotional appeal, monetized engagement, and unanswered financial questions. And that pattern started with Marsha. Actually, if I'm being really honest, I think that pattern started with Marsha's dad. He's a private citizen, so we won't be discussing that here. But that pattern, in my opinion, appears to continue here. And let me be really clear. This is not an attack on faith. This is not a judgment on how somebody is handling grief and a medical crisis in their life. And this is not saying that people shouldn't ask for help. This is about accountability, and especially when money is involved. The shadiness of asking for people to help you financially support a family member battling cancer when your image online has been about financial success and freedom through a multi-level marketing company is ironic at best, especially when audiences are emotionally invested and platforms are monetized and public records tell a story that hasn't been addressed. So let me ask you guys something. When illness content dramatically increases engagement during a monetization window, while tax liens, unpaid HOA fees, and a real foreclosure risk seems to exist, what level of transparency do you expect? When a fundraiser of some kind is done, isn't it standard practice to let people know that contributed to it, how the funds are being used, when they are being used? You know, the whole who, what, when, where, how, and why? Because I feel like that seems like the bare minimum. Maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comments. Before we move on to the next chapter, there's one more really important piece of this that we have to discuss that I haven't mentioned quite yet. Up until this point, we've talked about monetization. We've talked about engagement and public fundraising and financial pressure from tax liens and such. We've looked at a lot of social media posts. We've looked at public records. We've looked at specific timelines. But there's one huge detail that we haven't talked about yet. Throughout all of this, Marsha has remained an active promoter with Prove It under the name Marsha Costa, one of her many other names. Wild. She still to this day is an active promoter, as seen here in the screenshot. She's been collecting a check in some form this entire time and has never disclosed that to her audience publicly, from what I have been able to find. In all the fundraising for her bakery and for her dad battling cancer, she's been getting paid off of her customers and Lyndee and Kelsey Rhae, including their entire teams. So did these checks pay for the bread oven and all the bakery equipment? Because if so, why even do the GoFundMe at all? It just doesn't make any sense. Marsha raised over $300 and then purchased a $9,000 bread oven. Make that make sense. I'm not speculating about dollar amounts being received by Marsha. That would be literally impossible with the comp plan changes Prove It has made over the last few years, and not knowing how many customers, how many current customers and distributors she has, ordering under her, but maybe that's a question that you guys can ask her. Considering that goes against Pruvit's own policies, I find that fascinating. One thing that stands out across this entire family timeline is how often money is discussed, but only in pieces, only certain parts of the story, through bonuses, fundraisers, prayer requests, and asking for engagement, but how rarely the full picture of income sources is addressed directly and honestly. There are references to struggle, there's references to blessings, there are references for, asking for help, but there's very little clarity about where all the money is coming from at the same time while making their life look like a social media fairy tale and attempting to recruit people into what I believe to be a product-based pyramid scheme. And when people aren't forthcoming about overlapping income streams, especially in systems where structure determines who benefits, it changes how the audience interprets everything else, in my opinion. It doesn't answer questions, it creates more of them that I'm sure will never be addressed by them. Once you understand that, I feel like the focus shifts to patterns that they are showing us literally every day. It's no longer just about individual posts or individual fundraisers or even individual moments of vulnerability. It becomes about transparency, and with these people specifically, the lack thereof. I think it's important to step back and look at the big picture as we have done up to this point of the video, and I hope that when you see influencers like this online that you will ask them some questions as well. Now that brings us to the final chapter, because the same lack of clarity, the same structural positioning, and the same unanswered questions show up yet again. I know that's a shock by now, but this time it's another family member. You might know her as Kelsey Rhae, or what she's called now, Kelsey Rhae Carraway, formerly Mixon. And before we talk about what she's posting now, we need to look at how she entered this ecosystem in the first place. If you're new here, Kelsey Rhae is a longtime online creator who has built a following through lifestyle content, wellness messaging, and monetized personal storytelling. Some would suggest oversharing. Do we really need to know when your period is getting ready to start? We don't. She has operated in MLM adjacent spaces as well as MLM spaces. She has cycled through multiple income streams, and she has a very long and very public history of controversy. Things like unschooling and extreme fasting and fitness misinformation and Christian rebranding and straight up rage bait. I'm not going to be covering any of that here today because I think we are all aware of her tactics, and it's already been documented pretty extensively by the anti-MLM movement. I have, however, put together a playlist with all of my commentary covering her and her now husband, Eric Carraway, to make it easy for people to catch up if you happen to be new here. And if you are, welcome. Everything is linked in a dedicated playlist, and you can find that in the video description. What we're focusing on in this chapter is what's current, what's under discussed, and what materially matters right now in this moment. Before we talk about platforms or timelines with Kelsey Rhae, I think it's important to establish more context, because money matters here when these people are parading around online like they have true financial freedom when they really don't. And let me explain. Public records show tax liens for Kelsey Rhae as well, totaling roughly $8,000. Around the same period, a GoFundMe connected to her family appears with a goal of $8,000. Now, I'm not telling you what that means, but I do find that fascinating, don't you? I don't know, maybe that's a coincidence. Maybe it's not. But let's talk about one of Kelsey Rhae and Eric's biggest moneymakers, OnlyFans. Now, at first glance, it appears that Kelsey Rhae's OnlyFans account was shut down. If you search for it through Google, you're met with a page suggesting the account is unavailable or closed. Most people might stop there, but not me and not us, because she and Eric publicly stated not that long ago that they were shutting it down on a Facebook Live video. And, well, I'm here to tell you that that's just not the case. What I discovered, thanks to many of you guys and the Kelsey Rhae subreddit, is that the account no longer appears in a public Google search result. It's not publicly indexed by Google. So you have to know where to look. The account is still fully accessible through a direct link connected to the X account at Rhae Kelsey, which has historically been used to promote the OnlyFans content. Following that link does not lead to a deleted page. In fact, it routes to an active OnlyFans profile. I'm not showing the content for obvious reasons because we're here on YouTube. I'm not directing anybody to it because why would you support somebody that I believe to be a grifter, and many of you do too, when there are plenty of other content creators that you can support on that platform? I'm documenting accessibility and the flat out lies that come from her and Eric. The page displays a system-generated indicator showing it was last checked on January 8th. OnlyFans is a monetized platform, as it should be for the people that create content on that site, because sex work is real work. Monetization doesn't automatically mean wrongdoing. It does mean income disclosure matters when narratives change. When an account is accessible, functional, and not deleted, it remains an income generating account by design. That's not speculation. That's literally how the platform works. What appears to have happened here is not the closure of this account, but unlisting it instead. And an unlisted monetized account is still a monetized account. Now, place that next to what's happening here recently with Kelsey Rhae. She is rebranding as some version of a Christian influencer, or attempting to. She has posted about baptism, faith, obedience, alignment, gender roles in a marriage. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of that, as I have stated before on my channel and will continue to do so. The issue is transparency. Also, I don't agree with her take on gender roles. I think that is something that couples determine for themselves. Because when public narrative suggests certain income streams are done, while documentation shows that those systems still are active, audiences deserve that clarity, especially when there's an attempt to rebrand as a Christian influencer. And while we're talking about that, how can you brand yourself as a Christian influencer knowing this and be actively promoting in a multi-level marketing company that their last income disclosure statement showed that the annual median income was less than $11? Jesus would never. God, that is so hypocritical. And as I stated earlier, if you want the full history of the unschooling, the controversy, the extreme fasting, or the fitness misinformation, it's all documented and linked in the playlist in the video description. I don't have the patience or the time, as I'm sure you don't, to rehash all of that here. This chapter is about what's different now, what the latest grift is, how she's moving now, knowing that her prove-it income is plummeting, the tax liens are piling up, her RV is allegedly flooded, and she has to move into Eric's 2-bedroom apartment as a family of 6 now that they're married. We're gonna go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here because I don't think I've seen anybody else talk about this, and I feel like it's something that absolutely needs to be discussed. Because this part isn't about branding or morality or belief systems, it's about potential financial fraud. Now, I'm not a financial expert and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime, but we need to talk about a video that was posted earlier this summer. And that video was posted by someone named Connor, I don't know how to say his last name, I think it's Bologna. We'll just roll with it, via his YouTube channel, explaining how he helped fund an Airbnb business using credit. I'm gonna play some of the clips, tell you what I'm thinking about it, because we have to talk about this. We absolutely must talk about this.
It's also really, really essential to have somebody who knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing, guiding you through, because it takes you so much longer to try and figure out what they're telling you to do. Like, I could have probably eventually figured out what Connor taught, but like I said, like then once we were like fast track. You're just, time is money. And so the less amount of time that you can spend on learning how to do something and take advice from somebody who's already done it, the better chances you are of building your business quickly.
I would say the same thing. You could maybe do this by yourself and you can try to go that route. How long it's going to take, who knows? Where you come into some roadblocks that you may not know how to get around, most likely. So I would definitely say, if you're skeptical, go. And I would do it.
So the connections, like you can't really even put a dollar sign on connections. That Connor's connected us with so many people that has helped us in our journey too. That has made a massive impact. It's not even just what Connor knows, but it's also who he's connected us to help us further our education and knowledge in what we're doing.
Okay. Notice the framing. Notice the speed, the urgency, time is money, that kind of vibe. Urgency is used to lower skepticism and doesn't allow people to critically think and ask appropriate questions. And I feel like that's important because it primes people to accept advice that maybe they wouldn't normally accept.
My name's Eric, and I wanted to start an Airbnb business. Last year is when we started, and yeah, we've have one property. We have two now. So, yeah.
Right
My
on.
name's Kelsey. Yeah, and that's what we're doing.
And what was your situation before you guys found me?
So the situation before we found you was we were stuck with having funds.
We basically
Yeah,
just cash.
we used cash for our first one, and it was pretty hard. It made it a lot more difficult.
Which we didn't realize that you're not supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We just had an idea and then wanted to go for it and used up the cash that we had saved at that time. But
Because yeah, when you came, you had one Airbnb up and running, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And what were you kind of unable to do? Was it more or less just trying to get that one Airbnb up to scale it to a certain point, buy more furniture, or was it to expand the portfolio and get more?
It was to expand the portfolio and get more, acquire more. Yeah.
And how did you end up finding me?
So I found you personally through, I think it was an Instagram or Facebook ad. I found you. And
Sure.
yeah, you look like a great guy, pretty straightforward. So I was like, oh, well, let me just try this. And then I saw your ad, I clicked on it, and then I put my information, and then there you go. There you were.
Oh my God. Oh, that's a lot. Not an Instagram ad. So here they say that they were not supposed to use cash. And I feel like that statement is extremely misleading. There's nothing illegal or improper about using cash to start a business. Many people do that. That claim isn't about the law. It's just about setting up justification for what comes next, in my opinion.
Right on. And what were some of your thoughts kind of going through the process from first hopping on a call with me and then all the way up until getting funded?
So the call was very, very well laid out. You laid everything out perfectly of how the process will look. So that gave us, confidence to really move forward with that. And then it was a pretty seamless transition with all of your practical strategies and everything that you laid out on the table for us, including all the Google Docs and your school, a lot of things and key elements in your business that gave us the tools to get that.
I was a little skeptical about it because I've never bought or hired anybody through like an ad. So
Right.
I was like, no, that's like fake, and I think that's what a lot of people think. But then on the call, you really kind of helped to
Ease the tension.
right and like really give us the confidence behind hiring you because you just you're talking about. And then you did, like literally months into us working together, raise my credit score. Things moved very quickly.
Yeah, I moved very fast.
That's right. You did have some negative items. I forgot about that we had to get taken off first before we can get moving. I totally forgot about that. And when it comes to doubts and fears, because most people, just like you just said, are really confused and they hop on a call. They're not really sure. What was like the yes factor that made you just say yes anyways to the program?
It came down to we really needed the funding. It was something that we had our eyes set on the prize, and that was something that we wanted to do was grow our Airbnb business. So we were like, with how well you laid everything out, it gave us the confidence to pull the trigger.
Gotcha. What about you, Kelsey?
Same thing.
Same thing. Okay. Rapid credit score increases, negative items being removed quickly, credit repair itself is not illegal by any means, but I feel like the speed matters because aggressive credit behavior often accompanies stacking and cycling credit lines to maximize access to funds. And the context in all of this absolutely matters. We've been saying it this whole video.
Same. Right on. And where are you guys at now? How much have we got you funded in total?
So we were funded $93,500.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So that's amazing.
Love to see it. I love to see it. And what are you guys planning to do with it now that you have it?
I'm sorry. Did you hear that? They were funded $93,500. Now, that does not mean income. That means borrowed money, likely across multiple credit cards or credit lines. And funded does not mean income was earned. This is wild to put this on the internet, to put this on YouTube.
The scale. We're just going to scale. It's going to definitely, we're going to have some security there. It's going to make the process a lot easier for us to move forward and really just scale this very quickly.
What would you say to somebody who's just trying to get started in Airbnb? Would you say this is definitely a shortcut versus kind of save up cash to get started?
This is most definitely the best route to take, because like when we first started the first one, we did view savings, and that took everything we had mentally to pull that to actually invest in this, because that was security for us. So to have this extra amount of security to hold us, and really move forward was.
And also, it's just the fact of, if you're building a business, like that's how you have to do it. You need to have an LLC, you need to have funding, you need to let it through credit cards so that you're able to actually build a business on paper like that.
Right.
So
totally.
Oh my God. I feel like this is the most important part of this whole clip, this whole video of his. You need to run it through credit cards so that you can build a business on paper. Using a credit card for legitimate expenses, completely normal. People do it every day. But converting credit into cash or using credit in ways that misrepresent the purpose of the funds to a lender is not. This is where legal risk enters the chat, apparently. In South Carolina, there's a statute called financial transaction card fraud. I'm including this for educational context, not to label anybody's actions in this video. I'm not accusing anybody of a crime, just to be extra clear. I am explaining the law to the best of my ability, and I think it's also important to note that I am not a lawyer, and I am not giving any kind of legal advice. I'm sure there are some lawyers that will be in the comments that are far more educated on this topic than I am. So in plain language, the way that I understand this is this statute exists to prevent the misuse of credit cards or credit lines through deception or misrepresentation. It addresses situations where credit is used in ways the lender did not agree to, including obtaining money or assets under false pretenses. So let me be very clear. The strategy described in this video aligns with the type of conduct that this statute, in my opinion, was written to address. That is legal context, not an accusation, not a legal expert. That is how I am interpreting it. If you are a lawyer or you are educated on this topic, feel free to let me know in the comments. I do find it interesting, though, that Connor here is living abroad. I wonder why that might be.
That's amazing to hear. Now, to somebody that's watching some videos like this on my page that's just hesitant on taking the next step, what would you tell them?
And like there's no reward if you don't take a risk, honestly. Like, and we're used to building businesses, and we're in sales, and so it's like it's definitely scary sometimes to take these steps. But we found over the course of 6 years of doing things like this is like, those are the times that matter. Those are the decisions that you're making that actually make an impact in your life and move you forward in whatever it is you're trying to do. And it is scary, but like, what's even scarier is staying in the same place. It's also really, really essential to have somebody who knows what they're talking about and knows what they're doing, guiding you through, because it takes you so much longer to try and figure out what they're telling you to do. Like, I could have probably eventually figured out what Connor taught, but like I said, like then months we were like fast track. You're just, time is money. And so the less amount of time that you can spend on learning how to do something and take advice from somebody who's already done it, the better chances you are of building your business quickly.
All right. So now that we have covered that, which needed to be covered in my opinion, and again, if you know anything about that topic, feel free to share if you're comfortable in the comments. I would appreciate it. Before we go any further, I want to say this clearly and compassionately. Kelsey Rhae's grandfather is currently battling lymphoma. He is not considered a public figure. Nothing in this video is meant to speculate about his care, his condition, or his private life. I genuinely wish him strength, comfort, and healing during what is probably the most difficult time of his life. And it's important to also say this. I know some of us have recently seen that Kelsey Rhae and Eric rushed, it seems like, to get married. And if part of the reason for the timing of that marriage was that Kelsey Rhae wanted her grandfather to walk her down the aisle while he still could, I think that that's completely understandable. That is human, that is loving, and that's something that I'm not here to criticize. There are many reasonable explanations for people to get married quickly. Faith-based urgency. We know that they are a part of the church, and I'm just wondering if there's pressure from the church for them to get married. Wanting family to be present, I totally get that. A desire for stability, I mean, stability with these two? I'm not really sure. A sense of when you know, you know. Okay, I get that. All of those are valid, of course. But in a video like this, I think it's also fair to ask broader questions when major life decisions align with documented financial pressure and structural changes. That doesn't mean that there is only one explanation. It means that there are possibly multiple explanations, and transparency is important here. So let's talk about the questions the timing raises or has raised for me, not accusations, just questions. Could it be about faith and alignment? Maybe. Could it be about wanting her grandfather present? Absolutely, it could be. Could it be about financial or legal strategy, including preparing for bankruptcy as a married couple rather than individually, and wiping out all of that debt together? I think that's a reasonable question given the documented liens and financial stress that her and Eric appear to be under. Could it be about consolidating finances and starting over? Could this be their next rebrand? I don't know, but it could be. This could be that resetting of their narrative. What do you guys think? Creating a new public season while managing private pressure? Those are all questions an audience is allowed to ask and should be asking for these people that are public figures claiming to be millionaires. I'm not telling you why they got married. We might never know. I'm asking you to look at the timing, the context, and the overlapping pressures and decide for yourself what makes the most sense. I want to end this chapter by zooming out a little bit, because this video is not about whether someone is a good or bad person, although I'm sure that you guys have some strong opinions too. Warranted. It's not about judging faith, and it's not about telling anyone how to live their life. It's about the patterns that we are being shown. Patterns of monetization, patterns of financial pressure, patterns of public narratives that don't always match the legal documentation, and most importantly, patterns of influence. Because when you have an audience, especially one built on trust, faith, and vulnerability, transparency matters more, not less. What we've walked through here isn't speculation pulled out of thin air. It's public records, platform mechanics, direct quotes, timelines, and legal context. I didn't need to exaggerate anything. The documentation speaks for itself. And here's why this matters. People aren't just watching their content for entertainment. Well, some of you probably are, because it's wild. Some people actually are listening for guidance about money and lifestyle, business, faith, health. God, please don't listen to these people when it comes to your health. And about how to build a stable life. Again, don't listen to them for all the reasons listed in the playlist linked below. And when advice crosses into territory that can cause real financial, legal, or emotional harm, it deserves to be slowed down, examined, and explained. If you've followed Kelsey Rhae for a long time, it's absolutely okay to hold two things at once. You can have compassion for her family and what her grandfather and what they're going through currently. You can respect her faith journey, although I am wondering, and I know some of you do as well, how legit it is considering the mass amount of time she's attempted to rebrand. But again, that's just my opinion. And you can still ask for honesty and clarity around money and influence when people like this are asking you to contribute to their GoFundMe. Those things are not opposites. And I want to leave you guys with this. When financial systems remain active behind the scenes, when legal risk is minimized or not addressed at all in public narratives, and when life-altering decisions happen under pressure, what responsibility do influencers have to be transparent with the people who support them? I think that's the question that we need to ask ourselves when we see these influencers acting like this online. They can say what they want, but we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And this is oftentimes where the real truth lies. Thank you guys for being here. Please take care of yourselves and be careful who you trust online. Thank you for liking and subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye, everybody.